Kublai Khan also, Kublai Khan, was the ruler of the Mongol Empire from 1260 to 1294. His accomplishments include establishing Mongol rule in China under the name of the Yuan dynasty, 1271 to 1368, thus becoming the first non-Chinese to rule the whole of that country. He founded his capital at Xanadu, Shangdu, and established Daidu, Beijing, as its successor. During the reign of Kublai Khan, the Mongol Empire expanded to its greatest ever size so that it stretched from the Caspian Sea to the Korean Peninsula. There were setbacks along the way, including a series of campaigns with mixed results in Southeast Asia and 2 failed invasions of Japan in 1274 and 1281. Kublai, the last of the great Mongol rulers, died of illness exacerbated by his repeated overindulgence in food and alcohol. His tomb has never been found. Early life. Kublai was born in 1215, the second son of ☱ circa 1190, circa 1232, and so the grandson of Genghis Khan, r. 1206 to 1227, founder of the Mongol Empire, 1206 to 1368. While Kublai's elder brother Monk, r. 1251 to 1259, was the ruler of the Mongol Empire, Kublai was given the position of viceroy, Ilkhan, of Mongol-controlled northern China. Kublai bided his time and took the opportunity to create a network of support and a team of talented advisors, notably Liu Bingzhong, 1216 to 1274. From 1253, Kublai also personally campaigned alongside Monk in his attacks on southern China, still controlled by the Song dynasty, 960-1279. Mongol forces moved through Tibet and into Yunnan, subduing the Dali kingdom in 1257. From here the Mongols could strike at the weak underside of Song China, and so a 4-pronged attack was planned to invade from the south and west. However, barely underway, the campaign came to a halt following Monk's unexpected death from illness on August 11, 1259. Civil War and Succession. When Monk died in 1259, the campaigns against the Song were abandoned as there quickly developed a scramble amongst the Mongol commanders over who might be his successor. A civil war ultimately broke out between the 2 main candidates, Kublai and his younger brother Éric-Boque, 1219 to 1266, both of whom declared themselves the new Khan. The situation of 2 Khans would not be resolved until 1264, even if in 1260 a meeting of the Mongol tribal chiefs, a Kurultai, officially proclaimed Kublai the Great Khan, universal ruler, of the Mongol Empire. Éric-Boque was popular because of his conservatism, while Kublai was seen as a bit too Chinese-thinking nowadays, and he had the advantage of controlling the central part of the empire and its capital Karakoram. Song dynasty China. In 1268 Kublai seriously set his sights on the land south of the Yangtze River and the great prize of Song China. The campaign would be long and arduous, with the Song able to field an army of over 1 million men and both sides equipped with the very latest gunpowder weapons, catapults, and siege machinery. There would also be naval battles involving the largest ships yet seen in the history of warfare. The success of Mongol warfare across Asia had been based on fast cavalry, but the Song countered this by deliberately adopting a strategy of more static warfare and building great fortifications at key cities and river crossings. For this reason, it was going to take 11 long years for Kublai to pick off his targets one by one and finally batter the Song into submission. The attack on the strategically important fortified city of Xianyang was typical of the campaign. Besieged for 5 years, it fell in 1273 thanks to persistence and superior catapults, made from designs come across in Afghanistan. Then, in early 1275, the Khan called another Kurultai, this time to decide how to proceed in the last stage of his campaign against the Song. The Mongols crossed the Yangtze in March 1275 and proved unstoppable, winning a massive land and sea battle. With many Song generals defecting or surrendering their armies, a court beset by infighting between the child emperor's advisors, and the ruthless slaughter of the entire city of Changzhou, the end of the Song dynasty was nigh. The Empress Dowager and her young son Emperor Gongzong, r. 1274-5, surrendered along with their capital Linan on March 28, 1276. The Song royals were taken prisoner to Beijing. Groups of loyalists fought on for 3 more years, installing 2 more young emperors in the process, Duanzong and Dibing, but the Mongols swept all before them. The Song had been rich enough but paid dearly for their lack of political unity, the absence of military investment that had been a feature of past Chinese warfare, an absence of mobile cavalry, and generally poor weapons innovation. Finally, on March 19, 1279 a great naval battle was won at Yishan near modern-day Macau. The Mongol conquest of China was complete. It was the first time that country had been unified since the 9th century. Yuan dynasty China. Making himself emperor of China, Kublai gave himself the reign name Shizu and, in 1271, his new dynasty the name Yuan, meaning either origin or center, main pivot. The Khan, now emperor, embraced Chinese culture, unlike his Mongol predecessors, wearing the traditional robes of an emperor and riding in a sedan chair instead of a horse, for example. This was all part of his campaign to appear to the Chinese as their rightful ruler. The emperor surrounded himself with Chinese ministers and Confucian advisors, even if, behind the scenes, all the key positions of state were given to non-Chinese, especially members of the Mongol imperial bodyguard and, in the area of finance, Muslims who were considered the experts in that field. Kublai ensured that Mongols always gained an advantage in China by officially classing them as superior in rank to Chinese. There were other measures of segregation, too, such as forbidding Chinese to take Mongol names, wear Mongol clothes or learn the Mongol language. Intermarriage was discouraged and different punishments were meted out for the same crime depending on the race of the guilty. Rather than being a solely racially motivated policy, though, Kublai was most concerned with controlling his subjects, making it easier to identify who was who and ensuring there were no rebellions. Chinese were forbidden to carry weapons and congregate in public, for example. The emperor did make some serious attempts to bring the many peoples of his empire together by encouraging the use of different languages in his administration, tolerating different religions, and even ensuring different food dishes were served at the imperial court. Kublai himself converted to Tibetan Buddhism, a move likely influenced by his most important wife and advisor, Chabi, aka Kublai Khan, died in 1281, and the Tibetan monk Phags Pa Lama, 1235–1280. The latter was charged with creating a new official language, based on Tibetan and Sanskrit, which Kublai hoped might be a further bond between the many nationalities under his rule, but the idea never caught on outside the court. Marco Polo. The Venetian traveler Marco Polo, 1254–1324, set off in 1271 and famously crossed Asia to reach China during the reign of Kublai Khan. Between circa 1275 and 1292 Marco even served the Khan, seemingly in the capacity of a roving ambassador/reporter on the more remote parts of the Mongol Empire. The invasions of Japan. Rewinding to 1268, just why Kublai wanted to include Japan in his empire while he was still fighting the Song is unclear. He may have been interested in its resources, especially gold. Prestige may have been a factor as conquest had been a traditional method for Mongol leaders to cement their position of power, or he may have wanted to stop the trade between Japan and Song China, thus weakening his number one adversary. Conquering Japan would have given him access to an army which included well-trained samurai, or the invasion may even have been some sort of revenge for the havoc that the Wako, Japanese pirates, had been causing to East Asian coastlines and trade ships. Whatever Kublai's reasons, the approach was clear: diplomacy first, warfare second. From 1268, Kublai sent ambassadors, but their demands for tribute were totally ignored, except that Japanese troops were put on alert in areas where any invasion seemed likely. This was just as well since Kublai lost patience and amassed a fleet of some 800 to 900 ships and dispatched it from Korea in November 1274. The ships carried an army of some 16,600 to 40,000 Mongols, Chinese, and Koreans. The Mongol attacks met stiff resistance on the outer islands, but the invasion fleet proceeded to Hakata Bay, landing on November 19. Prepared they may have been, but the total Japanese defense force was still a paltry 4,000 to 6,000 men. The Mongols won the first engagements thanks to their superior numbers, weapons, and mass-coordinated troop movements which the Japanese were not used to, as they favored allowing individual warriors to pick their own single target in their version of medieval warfare. Curiously, though, the invaders did not push deeper into Japanese territory. Perhaps this was because of supply problems or the death of the Mongol general Lu Fuxiang. It may also be true that the whole invasion was actually only a reconnaissance mission. Whatever the motive, the invaders remained by their ships for the night, withdrawing out into the bay for safety on November 20th. This was a fateful decision because, in some accounts, a terrible storm then struck which killed up to a third of the Mongol army and severely damaged the fleet. The attackers were thus obliged to withdraw back to Korea. Kublai Khan returned to diplomacy and sent 2 more embassies to Japan in 1275, demanding, once again, tribute be paid. This time the Japanese were even more dismissive and beheaded the ambassadors. The Japanese used this interlude to build more fortifications and ready themselves for the inevitable second invasion. Kublai Khan's invasion fleet of June 1281 was a whole lot bigger than the first one. This time, thanks to his recent defeat of the Song and acquisition of their navy, there were 4,400 ships and around 100,000 men, again a mix of Mongol, Chinese, and Korean warriors. Again, Hakata saw the brunt of the fighting, but the new fortifications there withstood the test. After heavy losses, the Mongols withdraw to Iki Island only to be harassed by Japanese ships making constant raids using small boats. Kublai was, though, able to dispatch reinforcements from China, perhaps another 40,000 men. The combined fleets then moved east and attacked Takashima, a battle there taking place on August 12. Fierce fighting raged for several weeks and the invaders likely faced shortages of supplies. Then, yet again, the weather intervened and caused havoc. On August 14 a typhoon destroyed most of the Mongol fleet, wrecking ships that had been tied together with chains for safety against Japanese raids and smashing the uncontrollable, and not particularly well-built, vessels against the coastline. From half to 2/3 of the Mongol force was killed and thousands more were washed up or left stranded on the beaches of Imari Bay, where most were executed. Those ships that survived sailed back to China. The storm winds that either sunk or blew the Mongol ships safely away from Japanese shores were given the name kamikaze or divine winds, as they were seen as a response to the Japanese appeal to Hachiman, the Shinto god of war, to send help to protect the country against a vastly numerically superior enemy. Death and legacy. Like Japan, Southeast Asia was attacked in various land and naval campaigns, but they also proved an elusive prize with invasions of Vietnam, 1257, 1281, and 1286, Burma, 1277 and 1287, and Java, 1292, achieving only limited success where Mongol armies faced such unfamiliar experiences as humid jungles, parasitic diseases, and war elephants. Kublai never gave up on Japan and continued to send unsuccessful diplomatic missions to persuade the country to join the Chinese tribute system. Kublai died of natural causes in 1294 at the age of 79 or 80, an extremely old age for often hard-living Mongol rulers. The body was taken to a secret location, probably in Mongolia, as was the tradition, and buried, most likely in an extravagant tomb, but this has never been found. Kublai was succeeded by his grandson Timur as Khan and Emperor of China, r. 1295 to 1308, after his first choice, his son Jingjing, 1243 to 1285, died prematurely. The Yuan dynasty that Kublai had founded enjoyed some 30 years of stability but was thereafter beset by dynastic disputes and never again reached the heights of Kublai's reign. The Yuan would rule China until the arrival of the Ming dynasty in 1368.